Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Weekly Woo. So, we have a very powerful 6 week period that we are beginning right now where all planets are direct. It means that this is a time of great progress. We could really get ahead wherever it is that we're wanting to focus and change and progress. The energy of the cosmos is there supporting us for that. Now, this week, we also have some planets changing signs, and we're leading up to the Spring Equinox on the 20th and 21st of this month. Now, the Spring Equinox is actually the beginning of the astrological calendar. So this phase that we're in leading up to it is very much kind of like a dark moon phase where it's about releasing and letting go and really preparing for the new energy that happens on the Spring Equinox, which is going to really amplify what I had said earlier about this 6 week period of all planets direct. So there's a lot of like revving the motor, and then once that equinox hits, it's just really guns a-blazing. So interesting what we pulled this week. First, our plant ally was elm, but it was reversed. Its keywords in this deck are trust, intuition. Now, elm is a very powerful, magical tree. It's a lot of magical wands were and are made out of the elm tree. Trust, intuition, but when it's reversed, it's a signal, a warning to us that we really need to pay attention to our gut. And all of this forward motion, it's a signal to say if it feels off, if there's something, you're going to have so many options, right? Because we still have Mars and Gemini. So many options, so much communication, so much correspondence. Not everything is a yes when we get this card upside down. It's saying if it feels off, if someone doesn't feel right to partner with, listen to your gut. Trust the intuition. Trust that instinct. So one of the things I do with my clients is we work on really listening to the body. What does a yes feel like with the senses in the body? Then we let that go and we transition into what does no feel like? And this is an accumulative exercise, meaning the more you do it, the more you're able to hone into that body wisdom, which is the intuition. So this is something this week that we want to work on, that we want to pay attention to. Are you listening to your body when it's a no? Because we want to be using this energy on that which we are for sure will grow, right? So there's a potential that with all this forward motion, you could invest in something that isn't a surefire hit for you. And so you want to be listening to the body, listening to the intuition. We got Fox Spirit upright. There were 3 totems that came out this week. Fox is all about that mercurial on the edge of your seat, really having to make quick and fast decisions and really using your wits, your smarts. And when it's upright, it's also saying like you may have to be cunning. So there may be some opportunities that come in that you may not want at this time, but you may want later. So how you handle that, how you give the no, how you give the yes, it's everything. This new moon that we just had over the weekend, very powerful new moon where Venus and Neptune were conjunct. And there's this transition this week of Mercury from Aquarius into Pisces, where how we're communicating is going to shift, where we may have to be a little bit more elusive because there's so much coming at us. Now, we got Skunk Spirit reversed. Its keywords are know your worth. When this is reversed, it's saying, okay, make sure whoever you're dealing with is treating you with respect, but even more so. Skunk reminds us that the way you treat yourself is going to be reflected in how you perceive the universe or the world treating you. So if you don't put yourself first, well, you're going to see that reflected in your relationships. And your relationships with your loved ones, your family, your colleagues, your primary relationship, your children. putting yourself first as an act of self-love and self-care. Now that looks different for everyone. You know, I'm a mother and it's difficult to like weigh the balance of when is putting myself first appropriate. But that may be part of what this new moon is teaching us. This new moon has an element of, you know, the love that we have for our creator, the love that we have for existence itself, and really cultivating a relationship with that when people may disappoint, situations may disappoint, where we're reminded of the past pain. Instead, focusing on really making love to the essence of creation itself. Know your worth because you are part of creator in your ability to manifest what you want in your life. You are a reflection of that God-like source. That's always really helped me as I've tried to overcome a lot of battering to my self-worth. That this idea of, yes, you're an individual, but you are also a part of the whole. And the whole is this magnificence that we can't even really grasp as humans. We also got grasshopper spirit, take a leap of faith, but it was backwards. Now this says, very interesting, because we have all this forward momentum, but we're getting these cards that are telling us, pause. Yes, it's time to take action. It's time to move forward, but you want to be so discerning as to where you're taking these leaps of faith and really vetting the opportunity, vetting these new relationships, the new friendships, the new colleagues, whatever it is, really getting to a place where the whole body says yes when you are ready to commit. Now, grasshopper spirit also really harkens us to this equinox energy, and really this even now, you know, this spring forward as we've changed our clocks, it's very grasshopper. Also, I feel like with grasshopper spirit, I always think when this card comes up for me, the idea of the beginner's mind. That sometimes, well, first of all, you know, no problem can be solved, no solution can be gained if you're entering into it with the same consciousness that created the problem. So with grasshopper spirit, it's like, go back to the basics, go back to beginner's mind, go back to a sense of childlike wonder, clear the slate. This makes me think of like the idea of like the person who's had, you know, a string of bad relationships, and so they're afraid to enter into a new relationship. But grasshopper spirit is saying, no, there is something new and fresh if you can clear all that out, which is really what this phase that we're still in before the equinox, to clear out the baggage so that you can really manifest what you're worth. Our crystal, which I've never heard of this one, it's prehnite. Here's a picture of it. See if I can get that to focus for you guys. Its ascended master is the Dalai Lama. And I'm going to get into this a little more in the extended weekly woo on Patreon, and I'll go through some of the mantras that are on this card, some of the affirmations that we can use this week. But the questions are really, in some ways, the most important with these cards in this particular deck. Are you ready to transform your life and create happiness? May seem like an obvious question, but sometimes it's easier to stay in situations, relationships, mindsets, belief systems, programming that may be harder, difficult, creates sort of a prison for us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but because it's what we've known, we choose the familiarity over happiness. And we choose the familiarity of our suffering and our pain over the work that it would take to actually root out the source of it. So the next question, are you ready to release suffering and ignorance? Interesting question, because releasing ignorance would mean that we would have to educate ourselves on other people's experiences, that which is unfamiliar to us, the other, or the one who is in opposition to you. To truly release suffering and ignorance, we would have to put ourselves in their shoes. And that means the ego has to step back and be in service to the soul's growth. This takes lifetimes to get there, right? But I really believe this particular time and space moment that we're in right now, that we're calling 2021, we have an opportunity to clear out massive amounts of what we want to call karma or baggage or past pain. The next, well, this isn't a question, it's a sentence now. Determine the root of suffering and observe rigid thought patterns. So we're coming out of that Mercury in Aquarius, which we had a Mercury retrograde while Mercury was in that sign, which has really shown us where our thinking and thinking patterns became stuck, became rigid, became really like abusive to our emotional body. Embrace inner peace and mindfulness and practice honesty and compassion. As you release old and worn out perspectives on life, open yourself to great happiness. So I think this is kind of this transition from Mercury in Aquarius to Mercury in Pisces, where Pisces is all about that oneness, that compassion. Again, I always say this, we have to start with forgiving ourselves, and we have to start with having compassion for ourselves before we can take that step to forgive the other. And that next step is really to make that mental leap and really sit and say, okay, what could it possibly feel like to be them in this circumstance, or to be a part of that group, or to have that understanding, or to have that belief? This is this mental and emotional flexibility that if we don't start cultivating on our own, this year 2021, with this Saturn-Uranus square that's constantly throbbing in the background, it's going to do it for us, and it may feel forced. So it is a mental stretch. It's a mental exercise. Just like asking the body, what's the yes, what's the no? I think there's another question of what are the thought patterns that I am adhering to so that I have an excuse not to be happy and therefore maybe to indulge in bad habits, bad coping mechanisms, or stay in relationships that I know aren't giving my body that full yes, that I know aren't helping me be my true, most powerful, honest, compassionate, forgiving self. So that's the weekly woo this week, you guys. If you want to go further into some of the beautiful affirmations and more insight as I pull other cards of energy oracle deck and some tea cards, some tarot, please head over to Patreon. We're creating a fabulous community where I will be sharing more and more each month about my process of healing, and really how we can utilize the forward momentum that this year is bringing us. Because also in the Chinese system of astrology, we are in an ox year that has a potential to move all of us forward in such a grounded and sustainable way. And we have to be flexible in our thinking for it to really work and really bring us into forward momentum. Thank you all so much for viewing. Wishing you a beautiful week. Reach out to me if you have questions. info@thegoodwoo.org. Thanks.